Hello, my name is Colin Dunn, and this podcast examines Jack Whitehead's article entitled An Epistemological Transformation in Education and Knowledge from STEP.
The Self-Study of Teacher Education Practice, STEP,
was established in 1993. STEP researchers have made a significant contribution to the knowledge base of education. STEP research insists on including the explanatory principles that practitioner researchers used to give their lives meaning and purpose in their explanations of educational influences in learning.
He suggests that STEP researchers have answered Sean's call for a new epistemology.
Epistemology may be defined as that branch of philosophy that studies the nature of knowledge, in particular its foundations, shape, scope, and validity. Whitehead believed that this new epistemology could be made explicit from the explanations given by STEP researchers for their educational influences in their own learning, in the learning of others, and in the learning of the socio-cultural formations in which we live and work. These explanations have been referred to as living educational theories. It is also believed that the practical principles that Whitehead used as a teacher to explain his educational influences in his own learning and in the learning of his pupils were at best pragmatic maxims that had a first crude and superficial justification in practice that in any rationally developed theory would be replaced by principles with more fundamental theoretical justification. The tension that moved him from being a teacher of science in a school to being an educational researcher and educator in a university was focused on the mistake in educational theory of believing that the practical principles that educators use to explain their educational influences in learning should be replaced by the principles from the disciplines of education. It is STEP research that will not permit this replacement. STEP research insists on including the explanatory principles that practitioner researchers use to give their lives meaning and purpose in their explanations for educational influences in learning. In this article, Whitehead refers to units of appraisal. He argues that because the unit of appraisal is an individual's explanation of educational influence in learning, and each individual is responsible for the creation of their own living educational theory. The distinction made by the author between an explanatory principle and a standard of judgment from an epistemological perspective is that explanatory principles are the principles used in the creation of a living educational theory. Reflecting on this claim to knowledge from an epistemological perspective, Whitehead clarifies the explanatory principles as the principles he uses to evaluate the validity of his claim to knowledge. The importance of understanding a unit of appraisal is that this is whatever is being judged in terms of its validity. The standards of judgment are what are used to do the judging. The importance of logic is that it is a mode of thought that is appropriate to comprehending the real as rational. Whitehead explains that when the validity of a claim to educational knowledge is judged, or a belief that is held about the world, standards of judgment are used. In the creation of a new epistemological for educational knowledge, Whitehead suggests living educational standards of judgment are used. Living educational standards of judgment are values-laden. By this, the author means that we cannot distinguish something as educational without approving it in the exercise of a value judgment. The practical principles used to explain our educational influence are also values-laden for the same reason. The last 2,500 years have seen a conflict between propositional and dialectical logicians. Drawing on Aristotle's logic, propositional thinkers have claimed that two mutually exclusive statements cannot be true simultaneously. Alternately, dialectical thinkers have claimed that contradictions are the nucleus of dialectics. Then too, propositional thinkers reject dialectical claims to knowledge as being without the slightest foundation. Whitehead suggests that the new epistemology for educational knowledge created from STEP research includes a living logic that can draw insights from ideas formed with both propositional and dialectical logic without being drawn into their rejections of the rationality of the other. As stated previously, propositional thinkers can reject dialectical claims to knowledge as being without the slightest foundation. Dialectical thinkers claim that propositional theorists are masking the contradictory nature of reality. The rejection by proponents of these logics of the rationality of the other's position still continues to fuel the paradigm wars. Whitehead concludes by suggesting that it is to be expected that introducing a third logic, that of inclusionality, in a new epistemology of educational knowledge will be met by a mixture of bemusement, curiosity, hostility, and outright rejection by those in positions of power in academic institutions to decide what counts as valid educational knowledge.